Hi, I'm Mr. Simons, and in this video we're going to talk about globalization. So we're going to talk about the process of all the economies around the world integrating together. Okay, let's get started. So here we go. We're going to talk in this video about the concepts of globalization and also about the idea of global world product. What is meant by the process of globalization? So we are answering that core question here, what is globalization? So in the context of economics, what we're looking at involves a couple of different concepts, and that includes the following. Okay, so our first idea is that globalization, or the process of globalization, involves the increasing integration of different economies. So this means that they are more linked, that they operate more closely together. And when we talk about the fact that they're linked in terms of positive things, but also they're linked in terms of negative things. So this is something to keep in mind as well. The other point we can think about is that with globalization comes the increased impact of international influences on life in different countries. So this could be economic impacts of having closer ties with other countries, but it could also have cultural impacts of interacting with different cultures, bringing in different aspects of cultures. Okay, let me direct your attention to this chart here. So this comes from the Reserve Bank of Australia's chart pack, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. I've always wanted to do that. I haven't done that before. The description below. Can you see here this graph says GDP growth world? So it's looking at GDP growth all around the world. Now, can you see here we've got major trading partners, and this refers to Australia's major trading partners. And then you've got the world economy, right? So can you see here that there is an almost one-for-one correlation between all of these economies? That when there is this enormous fall, as happened during the GFC, what happens to one economy then affects the whole world. An easy way to think about it is to give it a little catchphrase or a little bit of a slogan. So what we can say here is that what happens if China or the US sneezes? And by sneezes, we're saying, okay, that they experience an economic downturn, that their economies slow down considerably. So let's finish off this saying. So if China or the US sneezes, and remember by sneezes we mean, okay, they experience an economic downturn, these countries don't actually physically sneeze, then what will happen is the rest of the world catches a cold. So the infection spreads. So what happens to one big economy or any economy around the world can affect all of the other economies because they are more linked, and they are more linked because of the process of globalization. Okay, now let's think about how we might measure globalization. You know, how do we know whether globalization is increasing, decreasing, it's accelerating, it's slowing down, it's going up, and then it's going down? One way we can measure globalization is by looking at how many goods and services are produced and traded around the world. So how much stuff are countries, economies around the world making to sell to other countries and consume themselves? And what we're talking about here is that we're looking at something called gross world product. Okay, so we know that GDP looks at output for one economy, all of the goods and services produced by one economy in a year. If we're looking at gross world product, so not domestic product, now we're looking at gross world product. What we're going to do is we're going to add all those individual GDPs together to find out what world output is. So what we might do is we might say, okay, so what I'm going to do is go GDP. So I add up GDP of the US, right? US, of Australia, of China, of all the other countries around the world to get a sense of how much output is being produced and what is being demanded by different consumers and different countries. So if we're looking at how to define this, this would be a way of explaining it. So gross world product is the total outputs of goods and services produced by the world economy over a period of time. And we calculate it simply by looking at the GDP in each country. And what it's telling us is it's looking at, okay, what is the demand for goods and services from economies all around the world, right? How many goods and services are being produced and traded all around the world, are using those different links as a way of looking at the extent of globalization. Okay, in this video, we looked at what is globalization. Give us a thumbs up. Why don't you leave us a comment or even subscribe if you want to see much more economics content. And as always, thanks for watching.